solving system of linear equations by determinant. Again, in this section, I'm still doing two equations by two unknowns. Now, let me explain how this method works. If you have two equations by two unknowns, we'll call the first equation a1 times x plus b1 times y equals c1. The one represents equation number 1. And the second equation will be called a2 times x plus b2 times y equals c2. What I'm going to do here to solve for x is going to equal, here's a determinant. Again, we didn't discuss what determinants are. We'll show you how to solve them. In the bottom of each one, for x and y, I'll do y here. Leave a space because there's going to be one on the top too. In the bottom, you're going to write the coefficient of x and y. So that'll be a1, a2, b1, b2. a1, a2, b1, b2. What's going to be on the top? On the top, notice a's are the coefficient of x, right? So I'm not going to put a1, a2 on the top. Since I'm looking for x, that's the first column. I'm going to replace them with c1 and c2, the answers, and leave the b's here, b1, b2. When I'm looking for y is my second column. You see that, b1, b2? The first column is going to stay the same, and this will be C1 and C2. And the question, if I know how to find the value of each one, I'm done. It looks complicated, but it's not. Once we do some numbers, it's really straightforward. How do you find the values of each one? It is a cross multiply. It's this one times this. So A1, I'm doing the bottom one first. A1 times B2 minus this one times this. A2 times B1. Does anyone know why I decided to do the bottom first? Any idea why I chose to do the bottom first? You always want to do the bottom first. Why? Because if the bottom is 0, can you divide by 0? Don't waste your time finding the answer to the top. It means no solution, parallel lines. So you always try the bottom first. If that's 0, stop right there. Parallel lines. Now you want to find the answer to the top, cross multiply again. You go C1 times B2 minus these two, C2, B1. For y, diagonal again, A1 times C2 minus A2 times C1. And it usually takes about a minute to do a problem. Not even a minute. Let's try an example. Here's an example. 2x plus y equals 1 5x minus 2y is equal to negative 11. And I want to solve this using determinant. Here's what x is going to be. There's what y is going to be. Let's write the determinant for each one. I'll start with the bottom. Now, the bottom is going to be the coefficient. I'll wait. I'll give you a chance to catch up. The coefficient of x and y. What's the coefficient of x and y? I see a 2. I see a 5. What's that number here? 1. And this is what? Negative 2. 2, 5, 1, and negative 2. The bottom is always the same for all of them. On the top, for x represent the first column. So the numbers in the first column are going to disappear. I'm going to have the answers. 1 and negative 11. And these numbers stay. The y values stay. Y here represent which column? The second column. So the first set of numbers is going to stay. But the second set of numbers, I'm going to replace them with what? The answers, 1 and negative 11. Everyone see what we're doing? Now let's find the answer to each one. Start with the bottom first. This times this. What's 2 times a negative 2? Negative 4. It's always a minus. What's 1 times 5? So the bottom is what? Negative 9. For both of them. It's the same set of numbers in both. What's the top? 1 times a negative 2. Negative 2 minus 1 times a negative 11. Negative 11. So what are we going to have? Negative 2 plus 11. Which is what? 9? 9 over negative 9 minus 1. X is minus 1. What is y? 2 times a negative 11, negative 22 minus 1 times 5, which is what? 5. Negative 27 over negative 9, which is what? Positive 3. So my solution is negative 1, comma 3. And you can test it. Plug it in. When x is minus 1, 2 times a minus 1, that's a negative 2. Negative 2 plus 3, is that a 1? Yes. So it checks the first equation. When x is minus 1, this is a negative 5. When y is 3, that's a negative 6. What's negative 5, negative 6? Negative 11. Yes. Regardless if your numbers are decimal, fraction, this method is wonderful. Watch this one. 5.3x plus 7.2y equals 4.5. 3.2x minus 6.9y equals 5.7. I really don't want to use substitution or elimination method here. Neither one will be fun. So I know what x is going to be. I know what y is going to be. Start with the bottoms by putting the numbers, the coefficient of x and y. 5.3, 3.2, 7.2, negative 6.9. 5.3, 3.2, 7.2, negative 6.9. These numbers, that's what the bottom is always going to be, the coefficient. Now, x is the first column, so on the top, I'm going to take the x's out, put the answers. 4.5, 5.7. Second column stays the same. Now, in the bottom, again, I'm looking at the top one for y. Y is the second column, so the first column, the x column, stays the same. But instead of the y column, I'm going to put the answers. 4.5, 5.7. I definitely need a calculator here to multiply these numbers. So here's my calculator there on the side. Cross multiply, start with the bottom. We know that's a negative number. What's 5.3? Oh, 5.3 times 6.9. I already know it's a negative. 36.57 minus, multiply these two numbers. 3.2 times 7.2, 23.04. So the bottom, when you finish it, it is negative 59.61. Let's look at the top. Cross multiply again. This times this, that's a minus. 4.5 times 6.9. 31.05. Minus this times this. 5.7 times 7.2. 41.04. When you add them, That's a negative 72.09. Now, negative over negative, that's a positive. And the answer is 1.2. If you only want to use one decimal place. Precision, place value. So 1.2 for x. It's 1.209, so 1.21 roughly. But if you want to use two significant digit, one decimal place, it's 1.2. Now let's see what y is. Multiply these two minus these two. 5.3 times 5.7. 5.3 times 5.7. 30.21 minus 3.2 times 4.5. 14.4. It's 15.81 over negative 59.61. It's negative 0.26. So negative 0.3 if you use one decimal place. Negative 0.26 or 27 even. So that's roughly negative 0.3. So this method, by the way, these guys are called determinant, but this whole method is called Cramer's Rule. So each one of these is known as a determinant. And to find the value of that determinant, you go this times this minus this times that. But the entire method is called Cramer's Rule. Let me try another one or two here. Let me try to throw a twist in them, maybe if I can find something with a twist. Yes, there we go. Three x minus y equals 3. 4x equals 3y, where'd you go? Plus 14. Just a little bit off there. Just a hair off. Again, use Cramer's Rule to solve. Well, the first thing I need to do is rewrite these. I need x and y on the same side. They're not on the same side. So this will be 3x minus y equals 3. And this will be what? 4x minus 3y equals what? 14. That's the first step. I need to put them in that format. Again, what's x going to be? Let's write the determinant. On the top is going to be on the bottom is going to be the coefficient of x and y. The bottom is going to be 3, 4, negative 1, Look right here, 3, 4, negative 1, negative 3. These are the coefficients of x and y. They go on the bottom. On the top for x, I'm going to skip the first column. I'm not going to put the 3 and the 4. I'm going to put the answers, which is what? 3 and 14. Negative 1, negative 3. For y, I'm going to eliminate the y. Leave the x there. The 3 and 4, leave them there. But when you're looking for y, you take these numbers out, you put 3 and 14. Does everyone understand that part? Because when we get to 3 by 3, that's the same process. That's the last section. So if you understand this, when we get to 3 by 3, you'll see it's the same thing. Except it takes 2 pages to do it. Because these are 2 by 2, it's small. We call them 2 by 2 here. It's 2 rows by 2 columns. So I got to find the answer to each one. Again, cross multiply. What's 3 times a negative 3? Negative 9 minus, what's 4 times a negative 1? Negative 4. Negative 9 plus 4 is what? Negative 5. What about the top? 3 times a negative 3. Negative 9 minus 14 times a negative 1. Negative 14. That's 14 minus 9, which is what? Is that a 5? 5 over negative 5, that's a negative 1. This one, 3 times 14, is that a 42? Minus 3 times 4, which is what? 12. What's 42 minus 12? Is that 30? 30 over negative 5, which is what? Negative 6. So your solution is negative 1 comma negative 6. Not a bad way of doing them.